Hello everyone, Nolan West here. I want to give you a quick session update because we've hit a rather pivotal moment. So the House and Senate Democrats with Governor Walz have decided how much money they want to spend this year. And the number they came to was $541 million. Now that's over double what the governor's initial proposal was. And the reason why the governor was a lot less than the House Democrats, which they're significantly more left-wing, is there's a $1.5 billion budget deficit going forward. $1.5 billion in the next session. Now, adding another $500 million to that isn't exactly a responsible thing to do. But that $1.5 billion isn't just $1.5 billion. That $1.5 billion assumes a $4 billion reduction in state spending, which has literally never happened in our state history. So if you look at, hey, we're not going to spend less money. That just doesn't happen in government. So that $1.5 billion budget deficit is more like a $4, $5, $6 billion budget deficit after you spend another $500 million. I mean, this is crazy budgeting. This is incredibly irresponsible. Because if you look at our budget last year, it went up by about $18 billion. The entire surplus was spent, our 18-some billion dollar surplus was immediately spent, taxes were raised by $10 billion, and the state spending increased about 40%. Now for reference, in the last 15, 16 years, the average increase in state spending has been between 8 and 10%. Last year was 40%. And now the thought is to add another $500 million on that. It's incredibly frustrating because you just watch this train driving towards a horrible economic situation, and people are shoveling more coal into the engines. It doesn't make any sense. It's the frustrating part of the job. But in other news, at least we fixed the school resource officer issue. So last year, some radical Democrats passed a law that basically made it so school resource officers could not restrain kids. And it's like, oh, well, we don't want people restraining kids. Well, if a kid's being violent, if a kid's disrupting class, if a kid's destroying property, well, that's exactly why we want school resource officers there. Because if kids don't feel safe in class, they don't learn. And if somebody next to you is just going nuts, yeah, you're not going to be focused on your math homework. So as a result of that bill that was passed last year, the Blaine Police Department was forced to pull their school resource officers out of school. Around 40 police departments pulled their school resource officers from schools because they didn't want to turn their police officers into criminals just because they're trying to keep kids safe. So that was really difficult. We called for a special session. It was a whole ordeal. There was trying to move the bill up on the agenda, trying to make it happen as fast as possible. Well, eventually, now we finally got there. School resource officers are no longer tied up by this law, so now they can do their jobs, and thankfully we're seeing school resource officers back in our schools keeping our kids safe. Thankfully in Blaine we have a terrific police department. Well, they pulled their school resource officers because they were agents of the school. They still had police assigned to the general area, so there was still a police officer available at the school on most occasions, but they were just patrolling through rather than being stationed there. And we saw a massive increase in 911 calls from schools across the state. It was a huge deal because if a police officer is there, they're going to be there in 15 seconds. 1 minute max, probably. But when you're waiting for a cop to come from mile and a half away, that's going to take 5 minutes. It's a huge deal. So we got that off the floor with a good bipartisan vote. The radical Democrats who were behind the bill that created this huge issue, they still voted against it. But thankfully, common sense prevailed and we passed that bill. Now looking forward, it's going to be a lot of stuff's going to come forward. We passed some good bipartisan bills, but now is when the money's going to be spent because the budget target of $541 million has been set. So looking forward down the road, in the next few weeks, you're going to hear about a lot of bills moving through the process, and they're going to spend a lot of money. So as that happens, I'll try and keep you updated. And if there's anything you're particularly interested in and you have any questions, please do not hesitate to either comment down below or send me an email or send me a message, and I'm happy to get back to you. But So that's an update of what's going on. We're going to spend apparently $541 million, but at least we got our school resource officers back into school. And really the rubber hits the road now for session. So we'll have to see what is really going to come to the floor to spend this $500 million. But anyways, have a good one. See you next time.